Hey guys, and welcome to my Sky Striker list. Sky Striker recently got a huge buff from the ban list, and it's a very strong deck going second, and it can easily go up against the best of the best. And I think this is actually one of the best decks of this format because Engage is just a very powerful card, and you can easily recycle it, and you can also use it to gain insane amount of advantage. It's just a +2, and you can recycle back with Kagari. And you can also search it, so that makes Engage a really good card. Even at one copy, it doesn't matter. Engage is still the one thing that single-handedly brought this deck back to the metagame. So this is my going second Sky Striker list, and I'm very excited to show it off to you. But before we get into that, just wanted to say that I was taking a little break, so that's why I wasn't uploading, and sorry for not uploading, but now I'm back and videos will be coming out, so thanks for all the support. So basically for the deck list, you have 3 copies of Sky Striker Ray. So Ray is like your main Sky Striker and basically the only normal summon of this deck. And you want to max out on this because it has a very good effect in the graveyard. So one of your Sky Strikers sent from field to the graveyard, you can just summon it. So it has to be sent from field to the grave by card effect, but that's fine. Ray is still very good. And now you have the 1 copy of Rose, which can summon itself out if you have a Sky Striker, so that's also useful. And you want to play 1 of that as well. You just need 1 because you can search it. You don't really need more than 1 because this is more of a control focused deck. Next, and that's basically it for the monsters. Sky Strikers only play like 4 monsters basically. Sometimes people opt to play 2 Rose, but I feel like 1 is more than enough. So for hand traps, you have 3 Ash and 3 Droll. And the reason I'm playing this is because Drytrons are in this format, and a lot of the decks in this format are very reliant on adding cards to from the deck to the hand multiple times. So Droll can just like completely disrupt them and just force them to end their turn. So that is another great thing about Droll. And don't forget, Droll also stops the draw effects from resolving. So that's another thing about Droll. And Ash is just great against any deck. You don't even have to worry because it's just Ash. You have to play it. And then that's basically it. And then you have 30 spell cards in this deck. This deck is very reliant on playing spell cards because it is a spell deck. So you have 30 of them. So your goal is to get as many spells in the grave. So at least 3. So that's not very easy to do, but you have many cards in this deck that can easily get spells in the grave. So you can get your second effects of the Sky Striker card. For example, you have Engage with the first effect to add a Sky Striker card, but if you have 3 or more spells, you get an additional effect to gain more advantage. So you want to do that as soon as possible, so you're playing as many spells as you can. The deck does die to Imperial Order, but not a lot of decks are playing that, and it's limited, so it's fine playing a lot of spell cards in this deck. So basically for spells, you have like a bunch of limited spells. All of these are really great. So you have Upstart Goblin, it's just a free draw, and it's just getting 1 spell into the grave. So that's very good. So basically if you play Upstart Goblin in a deck, it's a 39 card deck and not a 40 card deck, because if you draw Upstart Goblin, you just basically get another card. So Upstart Goblin is very powerful like that. And it's also a spell, so when it goes to grave, it just adds up to 3. When it just adds up. And then you have your Called by the Grave just to counter any kind of hand traps. And you can also set it as well for interruption. Feather Duster, you have Terraforming that can search either your Area 0 or Mystic Mine. And you have Set Rotation, which can do the exact same thing. Reinforcement of the Army can search your Ray or Rose. And you have Engage, which can also search anything basically, like searches half your deck. And it can also recur itself from the grave. You want to be careful about DD Crow because you don't want to dump Engage into the graveyard if you can't use it. For example, if you have no way to get Kagari onto the field and you open Foolish Burial Goods, then you don't want to dump Engage right away because they might use Crow on you, and then your Engage is gone, right? So you don't want to do that. And I see that happening a lot when I'm playing against other Sky Striker players, and when I play Sky Striker myself, I make that mistake. So it's not a good idea to put Engage in the grave if you can't use it. So next you have the Hornet Drones, and yeah, this is just another way to get it gives you a token, and that's another way to get into Kagari or some other Sky Striker monster. So Hornet Drones is actually very powerful. Next you have multi-roll. Multi-roll can recycle everything in your deck, and also if you have Area Zero already, multi-roll can send it to the grave and make all of your spells like nothing in response to spell cards, which is powerful. And you really want to utilize this card because it can set all of your Sky Striker spells back onto your field, so that is very powerful. And this is like a very grindy deck, so that will actually matter a lot. And then you have two afterburners to destroy monsters and back row, which can do both, which is great. Then you have two copies of Shark Cannon to banish from the graveyard, which is also great because a lot of graveyard decks have been growing around, so that's Shark Cannon really good. Widow Anchor recently came back to 3 as well, not in this ban list but some other ban list before, which is also really great because it can negate monster effects or steal, and most of the time you want to use its effect to steal because that's also very powerful, and it's also a quick play spell, so that just makes it really insane. You have two Area Zero to get your Sky Striker cards to hand. You're only playing 2 because you can search it with your set rotation, terraforming. You can also mill it with Foolish Burial Good and add it back to hand with Kagari, so that's also great. And you can also mill it with Hayate and add it back with Kagari, so that also works. You can search it in many ways, and it's just there to get your Sky Striker cards to hand. So Area Zero is very good, and it also pairs really well with Mystical Space Typhoon because you might be thinking, why are we even playing MST, because it's like really bad. But MST, when you're going first, it's good because you can just MST or Area Zero. It's also great going second because it's just backward removal as well. So now 3 Foolish Burial Goods to mill any of your spells if you need to. If you use Foolish Burial Goods, it basically gets 2 spells into the graveyard, so that's very powerful. Metalfoes Fusion is also great because it's just basically, if you think about it, when you use Foolish Burial Goods, Metalfoes Fusion is basically combined with Foolish Burial Goods is basically an Upstart Goblin, so you can just get a draw if you don't have to mill anything. And then Mystical Space Typhoon, Avarice, and Talents, all of those are just draw power. And then extra deck, you play 3 Hayate, 3 Kagari, 3 Shizuku, 1 Kaina, and 1 Zeki. So all of these are just great. This is just the normal ratio you want to play. All of these cards are useful, and you can slowly use all of them to grind your opponent out of resources and just win the game like that. And for OTK, you have Halqifibrax, Selene, and Access Code, and you also have the Unicorn there just for removal. So you can make your Halqifibrax with any monster and a tuner, so you have Ash and Droll as well. Or if you steal something with Widow Anchor, everybody's playing Ash Blossom, you can just steal that with the Widow Anchor or Shark Cannon, and you can just summon that onto your field and then go into Halqifibrax, summon out Droll, and then you can use Droll and Halqifibrax to go into Selene, and then Selene can use its effect to reborn Droll onto your field, and then you'll have, when you link those off, you'll have an Access Code with 5,300 attack, and it can destroy 2 cards on the field because you have Selene and Halqifibrax in the grave. But you might also have some other stuff like, you know, your Sky Strikers, and all of them have different attributes, so you can potentially pop up to 5-6 cards sometimes. So that's very powerful and can just end games. And then side decks, you have 3 Lancia, 2 Skullmeister, 1 Pankratops, Cosmic Cyclone, Dark Ruler, the other 2 copies of Mystic Mine, and you have Jamming Waves, and you have World Dino Wrestling, which basically if you mill with Foolish Burial, it can banish itself from the grave, and it can special summon your Pankratops from the deck. So that's another thing that pairs really well with Foolish Burial, so that's another thing to keep in mind. So basically that's it for my deck profile. I feel this is like a very powerful deck, and it's a very annoying deck to play against, so I wouldn't recommend that you play against friends with this, obviously. But if you want to grind or you really like this deck, feel free to use this deck list, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.